So today I wanted to take a look at the 1993 comedy film Groundhog Day because why not? Every YouTube reviewer at some point during their time here on YouTube reviews this film, so I guess today is just my rite of passage. But I have definitely had an interesting time with this movie. When this movie was first out, I absolutely hated it. Of course, I was a kid, so I found all of the repetition tedious. I really didn't get the point, and I just thought the movie was just boring and stupid. I probably rewatched it during my adolescence, and I thought the same thing. I didn't understand why people liked this movie so much, what they saw in it, because it was boring. All of the repetition just really got on my nerves for some reason, but I recently gave the film another chance, and I'm really glad that I did because I can finally see something in it that I can at least find interesting or relatable, because you have this story of this horrible weatherman. He's extremely arrogant and selfish. He's very one-dimensional. He is not a complete being, basically. And he pretty much just winds up in this loop in this small town of Puxatawny, and he's basically reliving Groundhog Day. In the film, it's not really determined how long he's been reliving this day, but you see him go through this really cruel, selfish person. Then we kind of see him go through this despair period where he just wants it to end, and he's, you know, kind of trying to meet his end any which way that he can, which is kind of humorous in itself. It's kind of like, well, how's he going to die today? But I think what is really interesting here is he actually makes use of his time eventually. It's kind of like he wakes up and he realizes every day is a second chance to start over, and if I don't get it right, I can do it again tomorrow, which to me was the main message here, is the fact that every day is a new opportunity to improve and better yourself as a person. I definitely saw a lot of spiritual undertones, and you know, that's what I read into it. And anybody who watches a film or any piece of media or whatever, they're going to read into it what they need, and whatever it is that they learn from that material, they are going to apply it to their lives and make use of it. And I can definitely see a purpose in this film for that particular reason, which is very interesting because even at the time when this movie was out, it had definitely gained the interest of a lot of metaphysics groups, and director Harold Ramis was expecting to receive some kind of a backlash, but people actually really embraced it. And I think it's because they saw something similar in it to what I saw on this viewing, but at least I was able to see something in it redeeming that I can actually make use of in my life, because essentially it is a very positive message. The fact that you have an opportunity every single day. You don't have to live on loop, but every single day is an opportunity to better yourself and grow as a person and an individual. And you don't have to be this absolute jerk every single day. I mean, even if, say, you go out of your way to make some person's life miserable every single day of their life, you can actually rise above that, and you don't have to be a piece of trash. You know, you can actually make something of yourself, which, you know, it's definitely a redeeming quality in my opinion. And he definitely grows throughout the course of the film. He is absolute garbage, but we see him grow as an individual. At some point in the film, he has this psychosis where he thinks he's God because he's lived his life so many times and that he's eternal and that he knows so much about all of these townspeople. But at some point or another, other than just whatever it is that he picked up through observation, he kind of makes it a point to better everyone's life in that town to a degree. He obviously has lived this life long enough. He knows if someone's going to fall out of a tree and break their leg, if somebody's going to have a stroke. And he actually makes an effort to help these people. But not just that, he makes use of his time to study poetry, to learn to play the piano. So he grows as an individual on multiple levels throughout this film, which is just beyond redeeming, in my opinion, because he went above and beyond to better himself as a person. And not just that, he had multiple opportunities to spend time with this one particular woman that he realized he had feelings for her, and he took the time to get to know her as a person, her likes, her dislikes, her desires. And yes, he failed numerous times throughout the course of the film. He even got slapped in the face on a daily basis, but he eventually got it right, and he wooed her proper, I guess you can say. But he never would have had that opportunity had he not taken that time to actually invest in getting to know her, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. But I mean, obviously the character played by Bill Murray, as I said, he's intolerable at the beginning, but he actually really becomes a complete person by the end of the film. And when he finally gets it right, that's when this whole loop of Groundhog Day finally stops, and he can resume life, and he can take those lessons and apply them to the rest of his life, which, once again, I think that's just absolutely amazing. So to some degree, I think very much you can say the film is not a theory and practice. It's more of a practice in action, because he's taking these daily lessons and making use of them, which, once again, it just baffles me how big the message in this movie can actually be. And once again, I mean, I'm glad that I can find something in this film that I actually appreciate. And yes, it does have its humorous moments, but on this viewing, that really wasn't my focus here. I feel like I actually learned something from watching this. And yes, you can say that the film itself is a daily meditation, because he's growing as an individual, and he is using daily practice. So, definitely very, very interesting, very awe-inspiring, in my opinion. But yes, the whole premise here starts because his network sent him off to report on Groundhog Day, and they're viewing some ceremony. And then, of course, for some odd reason, he gets stuck in this loop. It's never really known why or how. It just happens. And obviously it happened to him for a reason. Even though he felt he was being punished in the beginning, I guess you could say he woke up, and he realized that he had a daily opportunity to become a better person, and he took advantage of that, which says a lot, because not a lot of people actually make use of their time when they're given an opportunity time and time again. So, of course, when this film was released, there was also just backlash from several authors as well, who felt that their material had been ripped off. You had author Richard Lupoff, who claimed that this was a ripoff of his short story 12:01 p.m. You also had Ken Grimwood claiming that this film ripped off his story Replay. But actually, what part of the real inspiration here was a 1892 story called Christmas Every Day, which was written by William Dean Howells. So that was part of the inspiration of this film. And to some degree, and I think this is actually really cool, to some degree, Interview with a Vampire, just the whole concept of being able to live forever, to some degree also played into the inspiration of this film, which to me is just absolutely amazing, because I love Anne Rice. I've read all of the original Vampire Chronicles, and of course Interview with the Vampire was a very big part of my life in my younger years. And I know I'm wavering here a bit, but it's definitely very interesting when something that caused an impact in your own life also served as inspiration to a film that later just leaves you like, whoa. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very odd praises I have for this film. I will freely admit to that. I definitely saw something in it that maybe very few people see, or, you know, it is a comedy. It does have its moments, but I saw something in it that was a bigger picture. And to me, that was my reason for wanting to discuss this film, because, you know, a proper storytelling affects the audience, whether it's an emotional response, or if it gives you something to think about, or if you feel you actually gained something and walked away with something. In my opinion, that is extremely effective storytelling, and that's exactly the effect that this film had on me. So oddly enough, director Harold Ramis had considered several different actors before taking on Bill Murray. Of course, these other options were dismissed because they were considered to be too nice, and obviously the character is just a total jerk off. So some of the people who had been considered were Tom Hanks, Chevy Chase, Steve Martin, John Travolta, which I think is an odd choice as well. But once again, I mean, they were considered, I guess, just too clean, polished, or nicey, and they wanted somebody a little more rough around the edges. And Bill Murray plays pompous and arrogant perfectly. I think to some degree it's a part of his actual personality that he puts into these roles, because quite a few of the movies that I have seen him in, Scrooged for example, he also pulls off the whole jerk effect very eloquently. You know, it's kind of like his forte, I guess you could say. So of course, during filming, Bill Murray was actually bitten by the groundhog twice, and he had to get a rabies vaccination each time. You know, I thought that was kind of amusing, considering the fact that he's a very dislikable character. Apparently the groundhog agreed and bit him. So actually throughout the course of the film, there are roughly 38 days, either in partial or in full, that are depicted throughout the course of this film. And there's one very detailed YouTube video out there that breaks down every single one of these days. I really don't want to get into it. If I can find that link, I will drop that in the description box for you guys if you'd like to look into this further. But of course, upon the film's release, the town of Puxatawny basically became a tourist attraction. Particularly, there are two landmarks, one which I believe says Bill stepped here, and that's the location where Bill Murray kept stepping into the puddle every single day. And there's also another one called Phil's Corner, which is basically the scene before the puddle, in which Bill Murray's character is approached by an insurance salesman every single day from some guy just trying to sell him insurance, and obviously that guy's name was Phil. So I don't know, I thought that was actually kind of neat. And so another interesting thing, or a point of interest for me, is there's a particular scene in which Bill Murray's character is quoting a poem by Jacques Brel, which I believe was Les Bourrées des Célibataires. Pardon my pronunciation, but I believe the translation of that is The Stuff of the Bachelor, which I think just the snippet from the poem that was used in the film was actually rather lovely. So roughly translated, the lines that he is quoting to Addie McDowell read as, the girl that I will marry will be like a fine wine that will become better a bit every morning. Which, you know, I think that's actually a rather lovely compliment, you know, especially when complimenting someone's age, you say, oh, you're just like a fine wine, you become better with age. Which is basically what he's saying is, you know, she she is just this bit of divine in his life that basically just, I guess you could say, improves his day every single day that he sees her, essentially. But yeah, I mean, I just pretty much had just very random and scattered thoughts on this film. I know I just kind of skipped around here and there. It wasn't my regular sort of review, but you know, I'd like to think that it was at least a nice break and a breath of fresh air for you guys, because I do like to change things up every now and again. But that is all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.